Hi there, it's Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles and welcome to your Power Hour. This is your time to put what's on your mind, on my mind, and we'll put our heads and hearts together and we will find a way to go from stuck to happy as fuck, alright? Now, today is so interesting. There are so many things going on. I don't know what it is, or maybe I do, maybe you do. We're all accelerating. There's uplifting, ascending, always something planetary or lunar going on, to where it just seems like things just keep popping up. And it can get intense. And it's interesting that I am coming to you now with such a bubbly attitude, because that is not how this morning started at all. And so I'd really just like to take some time to get real. This used to be Real Talk with Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles, and it might go back to that again, because there is this tendency of I get so much energy and I just love being and presenting, to where there is always this energy of, wow, she's got it all together. She's got her ducks in a row. And I've had clients just be like, you always seem like you know what you're doing. And wouldn't that be great if it were true? But how do you think I get all this information and this wealth of experience? Is from living this, from face planting. Actually, I'm writing down some notes of what do I want to say. One of the things that popped into my mind is Wile E. Coyote. That's who I've always loved, but that's who I feel like most of the time. I know, I'm going to go to the next level. Let me get a catapult. And there I am, face down on the dirt. Not how I had intended, all right? And then I see the road runner and, I'm going to catch up with somebody, certainly, because they look like they are having a fun time, and I'm going to do it. And I chase and chase and chase, and they have been looking around because they're in their lane doing their thing, but I'm just so focused on them that, I fall off a cliff because I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings or living my life according to me, okay? So this is real life experience where I'm coming from. What the Happiness Clinic has been developed from is actually a really intimate span of, I don't know, nearly 4 decades of unhappiness, okay? And wishing somebody was saying what I was saying, and so I just decided I'd be that voice there. And it's interesting because I had this one thing planned for Power Hour, and then it was really rainy and gloomy here, and so I really kind of fell into the depths. And then in my own life, there's a little bit of crunchiness going on in different arenas in my life and relationships, personal, family, and just seeing myself sink a little bit. And what's interesting is just the other day, what day was it? Sunday, I think? Monday? The holiday day, whatever day that was. I've lost all count. I made it here on Wednesday, okay? I got that shit together. Because we had a holiday. And I went to play tennis with my partner, and we're playing, and I'm not performing as well as I think I should for the tennis lessons that I've had. And I watch me spiral down. And my self-talk goes increasingly negative, to where my self-worth is based on this performance, and there's no way I can win this next point, and I'm not even being my own best friend or even a good coach. I was just an asshole coach. And I had to watch this whole thing. And it was so humbling and humiliating on several levels, because I talk about this shit. You would just think that I'd just be so good at this point that like nothing could ever get to me. But when I back up, it's always what was actually making things worse, that was actually pushing me back into an old reactivity pattern, was the same level of coaching that I had been given and delivered, and that was, however you are is not how you should be. And let's face it, that's the most painful thing that ever happens, is how you are right now is not okay. And so how I was performing wasn't okay, but then how I was reacting to my performing also wasn't okay. It wasn't okay to be mad. It wasn't okay to be upset. It wasn't okay to be frustrated or disappointed. And it's funny because this wasn't even coming from anywhere outside of me. This was all going on inside of me. And then to watch that whole situation and have such a hard time actually for most not being able to turn it around. And having to watch myself fail at something that I think I should have been good at. So there's another should. Like whenever there's a should, there's like a big, huge weight that makes things really hard. And what's interesting is a lot of these shoulds that we got are what we learned. And it's how we're trying to make sense of our world and how we're trying to be better. But if you've had a really dysfunctional childhood, even trying to get better often leads into some perfectionistic bend to where there's still an abusive component in it because we don't know anything else. And so coming at this, looking at, we're moving into June, and June is actually self-care month on the mental health calendar for this year. And what I've learned is self-care, self-love, resilience, emotional mastery, these are all skills. And it can be really frustrating to see somebody who's had a different upbringing just be naturally resilient, not let things get to them, have confidence, feel like they are deserving and worthy of love. And then there's people like me who question every single bit of that. And it doesn't feel fair. It's really hard in a lot of days to try to like pick myself up off the ground and keep moving and recognize that I've got this huge emotional weight and giant narrative and a million moving parts and working on not reacting while my nervous system is on fire and my heart's like in my stomach. And I'm also trying not to eat because that's the old me, working on coping. And there's just so much. And then when you think you're supposed to do it perfectly because you have a role or a title or a certain age or you have a kid now and you want to show them better, like it just gets to be too much and we crumble. And so what do you do in those moments? Like, how do you pick yourself up? And this is what the Happiness Clinic is all about, is learning the tools for what to do in those moments. Because that is inevitably what we're going to face when we're actually trying to work ourselves and choose our way out of into something new. And there's a ton of tools, which is fucking fantastic. They're everywhere and you can get them from anywhere. And what it really is just using a tool and use it when it works. Set it down if it doesn't. Find a new tool. There's always new ones being created. But then with the Happiness Clinic, what I have been learning, watching, witnessing, and experiencing in my own life is the tools. What's really, really the most important is the intention behind it. Is it just to fix something so that it's no longer broken, or is it actually to create something else? And learning and leaning more and more into that improvisation, and realizing that that's what life is. If we're not improving this shit and making it up as we go, we're living by a script or playing a chess game and probably just living in our head. And that will always end up with a clear winner and a clear loser, which for those of us who grew up with a big punitive worldview and a sense of justice might feel good sometimes. But then if you've had this dysfunctional childhood and it was never about you, that you'll still always end up being the loser. And at some point you just want to know something else. So you're going to have to improv it. You're going to have to make shit up. You're going to have to do things that you don't know how to do and be bad at things when you're not really actually bad at things. You're just new at this. And what's interesting is I just got off like a workshop about public speaking, and don't talk about you until you do it. I'm talking about you. I'm talking with you so that I can watch this again, because this is exactly where I am. Okay, there are things that I can be like, whoo, I'm awesome, I did that, you know? And here's what's also funny, until you trust it, you'll test it. So you'll work with boundaries, but until you actually trust yourself as a boundary keeper and one who has your best interest at heart and knows how to say no when you need to and yes when you need to, until you have that, you're going to test it. And let me share a little one about that, because I have grown by leaps and bounds in boundaries. But I had to test it last night because there was this issue that I was wrestling with. And I went for a walk to talk with my spirit team to really kind of be like, hey, I'm really trying to make a choice that's going to create more for me and my life and for other people. I care about how I feel I'm actually including myself in the decision. What it is a sister's weekend. Sounds great, right? Except that there's been some conflict and disharmony, discord, and disagreements. And so what this weekend could be, the potential exists that this could be a time of reconciliation and togetherness. And I'm also aware that I actually don't think that that's what's going to play out. I don't think that the time isn't ripe. Some other things haven't clicked into place. And it's really just me working on my awareness. What would I actually like for my life? And finally factoring that into the equation, because it used to be, what should I do? What would be easiest for others? What are other people going to think of me? And, having a lot of training in family. And this is what you do to keep a family together. And yeah, it makes sense because of this, and it makes sense because of that. But finally adding in, how do I feel about this and what do I want for my life? And this is new. And then actually seeing where sometimes my life just feels like shit because I'm just not making a choice. So I finally made a choice. But me and I've talked about this, me as the agent, me as the chooser, even though I talk about I happen to things, there's still areas of my life where I'm strong at this, and there are areas where I still have a lot of work to do, and family is one of the ones that can be my stumbling block. And so I finally made a choice. But then because I needed to test it, because I don't trust it, I over-communicated and shared too soon. Before I actually just internalized it and felt confident about it, I offered it to somebody, and then I didn't get the response that I wanted, and I collapsed. And that's been a pattern. And then, look, right after tennis, I have to watch myself fail at this. It's amazing that, seriously, like Wile E. Coyote, that I actually pick myself up off of the pavement every time, and I can still be here and laugh at it because I have done it enough to know I'm going to live through this. This is going to pass. Because before, they used to be so hard, and I thought I would never get over it, that my only option was to bail on myself, on my life even. And that's the opposite of self-care. And it's the opposite of what it's going to take to become resilient and master the emotions so that you can actually be sustainably happy. But I'm still in the in-between where I'm way better than I was, but I'm still not great, okay? And I'm sharing that with you because, look, if you can laugh at it, you've already changed it to where it's not so serious. It's not like I could hardly get out of bed because I was feeling so bad about this morning. And let me tell you, the rain didn't help, and staying up late didn't help. But, like, finally having to just be like, if I want something else, I have to do something else. But then here's a silver lining, okay? Also, it's in my human design. I'm just sharing. See, I said raw and unfiltered because this is all about me, because I'm one of my favorite test subjects, obviously. Crash test dummy for life. It's me. That it's even in my human design. There is a gate or a channel. I can't remember which one it is, but that relationship discord is so uncomfortable for me that it can actually get physically painful. And so what happens is, with this dysfunctional upbringing and poor communication and poor boundaries, and growing up in a system with 3 or 4 people who actually communicated the same, got that it was, when you've heard don't go to bed angry, well, we kind of got brought up with that. So then you just kept going and going and going and going and going until you hit resolution. Now, when you're working with people from that same system, it kind of worked. But then when you start growing up and moving out of your family of origin, you can see that some of these communication patterns don't work. So I learned a lot of this in my marriage, and because I could see where I would just keep going and going, and he was not my sister, so it really did not work for him. But then now being like, okay, how do I do this differently? Because that actually doesn't get me what it is that I'm going for, which is connection, communion, like reassurance and communion. And it's interesting because, I go to these improv workshops and we talk about public speaking, we talk about improv scene. You have to have the end in mind to where it's like, what is it that I really want? I really want to have better communication skills, stronger communication, feeling confident about my choices, raising my self-esteem, being a good partner is actually very important to me, to where it's like, okay, don't say anything and work on self-soothing so that the intensity of what's going on in this nervous system can get to a point where you can actually talk effectively instead of leading with pain. And I did better than I did before, but I didn't do great, I don't think by any means. But then when my attempt didn't go the way that I would have liked it to go, I actually was immediately able to be like, okay, stop focusing on it. And that too is a learned skill, to not fixate on what isn't working right now. That takes practice, to where actually I chose in a moment of sadness and goddamn near physical pain because things aren't tied up in a bow and we didn't kiss and make up, and I still have mixed feelings about my choices that I'm making in certain areas. All this, that I had a friend lend me a book, a fictional piece. Thank you, Caroline, for the Dalai Lama's cat. I'm only one chapter in, but here's the celebration. I chose to do something that was unrelated to actually just give me a break, to actually let my nervous system calm down. I actually chose some pleasure to actually introduce a new stimuli into the equation that could actually sort this out. And then wouldn't you fucking know it, when you actually make a choice like, I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to get better at this, that the universe will meet you. And it was near the end of that chapter where it's written by the Dalai Lama's cat. It's from the cat's point of view. And the cat got rescued by the Dalai Lama, is just having a great time being in His Holiness's lap and soaking up all this love and equanimity and hearing that, all beings want to be happy and avoid suffering. That's what every sentient being is looking for. And everyone just really wants to be loved. And their life is the most important to them. And the cat's like, oh, this guy is just so great. And then he runs out the door because she's curious about what's beyond the door, because she hadn't gotten that far, and then got chased by some Japanese schoolgirls, and she was like, yikes, and found her way into a little hole, and what you know, her whiskers started tingling, and there's a mouse, and all of a sudden her instinct takes over, and she's got the mouse. And then, as cats do, brought it to bragging rights, like, hey, look it, I'm a mouser. And then was like, oh my God, what did I just do? That mouse's life was as important to it as my life is to me, and it just wanted to be happy and avoid suffering, and here it is, I just snapped into being a cat. To where there's going to be times, guys, where we just go back into our habit because it's so ingrained. And she's so worried that the Dalai Lama is going to put her out because she's not worthy now to be the Dalai Lama's cat, because she's just gone into base instinct and killed a mouse. And the Dalai Lama says, the Buddhas haven't given up on you, so let's try again tomorrow. And reading a story about a cat that went into instinct just let me know, hey, We'll try again tomorrow. We fell into some habit today. We'll try again tomorrow. And why? Because that's what love would do. That's what the Ascended Masters, they're ascended because they are living, breathing embodiments of love and are living examples of love. And so from this fictional book that I just read just to try to get myself out of my head was actually a message that I needed to see. We just try again tomorrow. It's okay, JOYLYN. To where I have such a history of becoming the abuser and saying, it's not okay. Because you did this, you're not worthy. I was just like the cat. And I didn't grow up with parents anything near like the Dalai Lama. To where it kind of got reinforced. Yeah, you did it again. There you are, and having some, not healthy relationships of, yep, that's who you are. You're a fuck up. I've actually been told that numerous times. And to finally read it via a fictional piece, but it hits your soul sometimes. Like when you get it, you get it. Hey, it's okay. You fell into that. That's not who you actually are. We try again tomorrow, because that's what love would do. And so self-care and self-love, it's really just learning to ask, what would love do? Love would unpeel yourself from the pavement and get up and try again. Now, what love might also do is be like, could you just leave the Roadrunner alone? Stop worrying so much about the Roadrunner like it's the most important thing. Or maybe get a Roadrunner that's actually something that's true and real and lights you up. The metaphor isn't, it's not gonna go the distance, okay? So I can make it so far. It's not gonna go the whole distance, all right? But then I also wanted to, I did this improv workshop in Boise, and there was a quote from a book that he read to us that really was, so I'm gonna tie this together, just, it's a weird segue, but just go with me, but it's from the back of a book, and I can't remember the name of the book. Sometimes you have to watch somebody love something before you can love it yourself. It's as if they're showing you the way. To where just that line in that book showed me, this is how you love somebody. You just pick up and you do it again. And it's interesting that when we love people, we keep thinking, I'm going to tell them what to do, instead of just loving them so they actually know what the lived experience of love is. And then we can trap ourselves in saying, you should have loved me. I can do that forever with my parents. You should have loved me. You should have shown me this. And maybe the answer is yes, they should have. But now I am here and I am a chooser. I am an adult and I can actually do that. I can be the love that I needed, because actually time doesn't exist. You're spherical, everything's going to end up being you, so you can tend to those little broken parts and pieces and traumatized, wounded little ones and bring them back. And then when you let yourself be you and stop telling yourself that you should be this set of priorities should matter more, that this makes more sense so your feelings don't get any room, or that your feelings are so big your logic turns off and you just go into habit and you're not really being you, that you can actually learn how to love yourself out of it. That's what the 6-week Get Unstuck and Happy as Fuck challenge is actually learning to love yourself out of struggle. It's re-identifying who you are so that you can actually start to learn to be the lover who loves you out of these things. That's what the Happiness Clinic is, because then you actually know who you really are. You're love. You know yourself as love. You know how to love. And then when you love you, and you love yourself so much, then you show somebody else how to love you. And then when you be you and you light up and you love reading, or you love writing, or you love playing volleyball, or you love doing whatever, you show somebody else it's okay to just love those things just because. Oh, look, you loved yourself through struggle. Oh, that's what it means. Okay, now I see that. To where once we start learning how to get these tools and put them together and apply them, then we can actually be a living embodiment of it, and we start a ripple effect so that the healing is actually what's moving out instead of us spreading this pain and demanding that somebody else do it for us. So there's a lot about growing up, and growing up isn't just about you should have done better. It's how to actually be there when you failed. It's about getting up and trying it again, even if it failed the first time. It's about taking in new information. It's also about making shit up as you go and doing stuff that you don't know how to do. Because honestly, we're infinitely creative, and we came here to be us, which is something that's never been before. It's not all predetermined. It isn't all laid out. There isn't a way to know everything before you go. Sometimes you just have to leap and the net will appear, and you got to trust that you are the net. You are the universe. You're it. You're there. But you learn yourself as that. Some of us didn't get that when we were growing up, to know what that meant, what it really meant to be held, to be accepted when we're over the top, irrational, messy basket cases. But we have to learn how to do that now, because it's, well, you don't have to, you never do. But if you want something else than what you've had up until this point, it's what's going to be required. Does that make sense? I asked that, and you can't answer that. But anyway, we're getting close to time. That was a little bit, like I said, raw unfiltered, because I had so many different dots that I wanted to connect. But really, I've gotten into improv. It's something that's probably going to be bringing it more forward. And because if we're not doing something new, we're living by a script, or we're in a head game about how to be safe, and our life is becoming a chess match against opponents. And most likely neither one of those are going to get us what it is we really want, which is knowing who we really are, being vulnerable, and really connecting with other people, because that's part of what lights us up and actually frees us up and gives us a whole lot more energy to do even more and have greater impact in the world. So I'm hoping that this did make sense to you, that you can find bits and pieces of yourself reflected in my story, and know that this is what the Happiness Clinic is about and for, is teaching you how to do these things, because they are all learned skills. What the problem is we're not being taught this in our education system, and a lot of times there are so many great tools, but what people do is introduce them into the universe and say, here they are, but then you don't get a really good opportunity to practice with them, to apply them, to see how they work in your life, how they're workable. And and to get kind of the subtleties of this works this time, maybe not the best choice this time, and then to actually do things more than once, more than 100 times, to actually move from beginner into intermediate, and then even move into mastery. Because all the rules that we set up, well, a lot of us set up these rigid rules to try to stay safe and know who we are, when actually who we are is infinite. And if we know ourselves that well, we're going to be bored as fuck with our lives. And so then we start getting cranky and wondering, like, what did I come here for? So going through the Happiness Clinic kind of brings all of this. I came here to bring something, and happiness is when I am happening. I'm in the present, and all of me, I get all my parts and all my pieces, and we all get to collaborate and integrate and become something. And that's what the 90-day relationship remodel, the 6-week Get Unstuck and Happy as Fuck challenge, and Love Yourselves even brings a little bit more of the physicality into it as well, learning how to use your body in this process, to where then you can move into, after you've completed one of those programs in the Superhero Sandbox, we're actually doing more with improv games to actually practice doing these things in a game-like format. Because when you can laugh at it, you can change it. When you play, you learn faster. And so all these things are going to start to, these synapses are going to start to solidify, and you're going to start seeing, being, witnessing yourself as the person that you would like to be, as your next version of you, okay? So I encourage you, and it lights up my life, to be part of this process for you, to help you go from stuck to happy as fuck, to be part of this transformation and open it up and know that you have a space of no judgment because you're working with Wile E. Coyote herself, who has face planted more than anyone I know and lives to tell about it and even laugh about it. And so I know a lot of what you're going through and how to get out of it faster. And that's what I'd like for you. So go to ihappentothings.com/services, check out the programs, and then schedule a call for clarity so we can talk and find out what's going to work for you, because I'm here and I'm happy to help you. And I know you're worth it. And I would love to see the transformation, what you come to bring into the world. And that is it. That is Power Hour in 31 minutes. I think that's about my best time ever. And I am loving you dearly, exponentially, hugely, globally. And I'm already looking forward to talking to you next week. Until then, mwah.